那我就先开始哈，海蒂还没来的话，我们就可以先读中文，把中文先读了啊，先说一下日期，今天是9月7号，2023年，是23次与海蒂读玉书，玉苒厦之书读书会。我们今天呢继续读这个第109篇。好的，没问题。109篇就是思想调整者与他的宇宙造物的关系，它的第3部分思想调整者与凡人类型的关系。然后呢，还要读一部分94篇麦基喜德的教导在东方，有可能可以进行2部分，第9部分和第10部分。佛教的传播，第10部分是西藏的宗教所以今天对那 OK Today is September 7th, 2023. We continue to read the papers regarding thought adjuster. Today we are going to read paper 109, section 109, relation of adjusters to universe creatures, section 3, relation of adjusters to mortal types. And then we are going to keep reading paper 94, Melchizedek's teaching in the Orient, section 9, the spread of Buddhism, and section 10, religion in Tibet. Okay, I'm going to pull up sharing screen so we can read the Chinese part before Heidi join us. 哪位伙伴可以读中文的可以自告奋勇，我来调出共享屏幕。这是109篇，我们读了1、2，今天要读第3部分。第1部分是叫做调整者的发展，第2部分是自我形式的调整者，第3部分叫做调整者与凡人类型的关系这跟我们凡人正好是切实相关的，应该是比较有意思的一篇。然后呢，如果我们读当中有什么问题呢，海迪他就说我们可以随时打断，可以问他的是一个互相有交流的机会。读完了之后有什么问题也都可以提。现在呢，正好他没来，我们可以先把中文部分先读一遍，这样的话他讲解用英文讲解那部分的时候我们比较好理解一些。哪位伙伴给我们读一读。上扬方便吗？
我换一个平板，这个字儿有点小，我换一个那个平板再读。
我可以给你弄大。现在怎么样？还要继续大吗？
我这个等会儿我倒过来屏幕。
我是用平板分享的。
好的，这行了，因为我这个手机对，行，这是从09-3-1哈，3月1号。
对，从题目开始。
题目上边好。3调整者与凡人类型的关系。09-3月1号是吧？11973神秘告诫者的具体工作特点，根据其任务的性质而有所不同，这取决于他们是联络 联络类调整者还是融合类调整者。有些调整者仅仅是在其主体的暂时生命期中被借用，另一些则被赠予人格候选人的权利。如果其主体续存，则可获得永久融合的许可。在不同的行星类型以及不同的系统和宇宙中，他们的工作也有轻微的差异，但是总的来说，他们工作是非常统一的，比任何受造灵界存有类别的职责都要统一。该读英文了吧？
不是那个英文，我们留着那个什么海底读。现在他没来的话，他要来了，您到时候谁跟我打声招呼哈。那个，他没来之前，我们都读中文，我们不读英文。
哦，好的好的，那我继续。
啊，你把这下一段也读了。
0932119974，在某些原始世界序列一组，调整者作为一种经验训练，驻居在受造物者的心智中。调整者作为一种经验训练，驻居在受造物的心智中，主要是为了自我培养和逐渐发展。初始类调整者通常是在早期的时候被派往这样的世界，当时原始人正在抵达决策之谷，但相对来说，很少有人会选择攀登道德高峰，超越自我掌控和品格获得的山丘，以获得新兴灵性的更高层次。然而，许多与调整者融合失败的人，确实作为属灵融合的扬升者而续存了。调整者在与原始心智的短暂交往中接受了宝贵的训练，并获得了奇妙的经验。他们随后能够利用这种经验为其他世界的高级受造物造福。他们随后能够利用这种经验为其他世界的高级受造物造福。在所有广阔的宇宙中，没有任何具有续存价值的东西会丢失。0933119975，在另一种类型的世界序列2组，调整者只是被借给凡人。在这里，告诫者永远无法通过这样的主观获得融合的人格，但是他们确实在凡人的一生中为他们的人类主体提供了巨大的帮助，远远超过他们能够给予预染下凡人的帮助。在这里，调整者仅在一个人生跨度内被借给凡人受造物。调整者仅在一个人生跨度内被借给凡人受造物，作为其更高灵性成就的模型，即在完善续存品格的神秘任务中暂时帮助他们。调整者在凡人自然死亡后不会回来。这些续存凡人通过上灵融合获得永生。0934119976，在向预染下序列3组这样的世界上，有一个与神之礼物的真正婚约，即一个生死约定。如果你续存下来，就会有一个永恒的结合，一个永远的融合，那把人和调整者组成一个存有。0935119977，在这一系列世界的三脑凡人中，调整者与其主体在世间的生活中 能够获得的实际接触，比单脑和双脑类型凡人要多得多。但是在死后的生涯中，三脑型的人和单脑型及双脑型的人预染下的种族一样进步。没有。
Heidi 来了没有？ Is
Hello,
Heidi in?
hello.
Oh, okay. We are just waiting for you, and then we were reading
Yeah, I
Chinese
see.
version.
Yes, I see that.
Okay.
好的，
Great.
那
Yes.
Wait, I'm going to.
So I already told that we are going to read paper 109 section 3, and then we are going to read paper 94 section 9 and 10. So are we going to complete this goal? Yes, do you think?
I'm sorry. What did you? What was the last thing you said?
Yes, 94 paper 90 paper
Yeah. No, I
109,
saw that. Yeah. No,
paper 94.
right.
Yeah.
What was it? I thought I just missed the very last sentence.
No, I'm just telling you whether or not this progress is accomplishable.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see, huh? Okay, yeah, good. So are we starting 109 section 3?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going back to the sharing screen then. So we Chinese reading, we have proceeded to paper 8 here through 109 3.5. So the first 5 paragraphs have been through.
Okay. All right. So on certain, I'm just looking. Yep. And then on, yeah. Yep. So you got up to, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So you may as well just you're almost done with this section, right?
And no, I think in the middle.
Well,
Yeah.
what paragraph
We've,
are you?
we've been down to the three-brained mortals in the three-brained mortals of this series of woes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
we've
I
done
see.
that paragraph.
Okay, so you have 3. All right. Why don't I just read up to that point then?
Well, you don't need, you just read one paragraph, and if you have any comments, give any comments. You don't need to
No,
read all through together.
No, I'd like to, because I think that some people listening to the recording won't speak Chinese.
Yeah, I know, but still it doesn't matter. Because if you read all through and then come back to give comments, that is kind of awkward. Don't you think so?
Oh, you want me to read one paragraph at a time?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Sure. Do you want to finish the finish and then let me do it, or should I start now?
Yeah, no, I mean you read paragraph 1 and then give comment, and then read paragraph 2, give comments. We just
And then,
skip the Chinese translation part. That's all.
right.
The
And
difference.
then I'll read up, and then I'll keep going until we get to
Yeah.
in let's see. Yeah, right. The one that starts on the
Yeah,
two-brain.
and then
Yeah, okay.
we do the normal. Yes.
Sure. Got it.
Okay.
Great. Good morning, good evening, hello. Sorry I was late. Hope everyone is
That's
fine.
okay. That's okay. Yeah, we enjoy reading Chinese part, so we can get a little bit about what is going to be talked about. So it's good. It's actually good for us to understand better.
Good.
海蒂说她很抱歉啊，来晚了。我跟她说没关系，我们正好先读一下中文，也了解一下这章节说什么的也没有关系的。对，好的，Thank you, Heidi.
Sure. Okay. All right. 1 second. Okay, reading.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You know, about the second one, we talk about self-acting adjuster. I'm pondering about what self-acting means. That actually means that the adjuster can actually work out his will very freely. So that's called self-acting. So that person, that subject, actually, it's kind of do whatever the thought adjuster want him to do, so that subject follow God's will better, right? That self-acting means?
Well, I'm a little I think it's a little confusing about what a self-acting adjuster is, because all adjusters have complete free will and can pretty much do what they want in a way. But I think the difference is that a self-acting adjuster has, it tells us it has these things, these 6 things. Right. I think that a self-acting adjuster, maybe we'll have to read it again at some point, but I think that a self-acting adjuster, the difference is, they've had certain experience, they're more experienced, number one, and it's kind of like a credential, like they're a little bit advanced. They're and they're more, they also have certain functions outside of just being your thought adjuster. They're helping in certain planetary crises and stuff like that. But it says they very rarely leave a person, but they do. I think thought adjusters very rarely leave a person, but when they do, it's probably only a self-acting adjuster that does. That's
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's
I
one
see.
thing.
Yeah. 我就问 Heidi 一个问题啊，关于为什么叫那个上一篇章哈，上一节它叫自我形式的啊，这个思想调整者那一类，为什么那个题目叫那个？是不是就是说这些思想调整者在这个主体身上，就是更那个主体，就是他们寄居的这个主体，他们是可能是更能够行使神的旨意的。然后呢，Heidi 就说。为什么这么叫哈？他可能一方面来讲，他们是比较有经验的思想调整者，就是这个，并且呢，他们能执行，就是说除了思想调整者之外的其他的一些的功能，比如说参与一些行星的事物啊。虽然他们就是思想调整作为它主要的功能，它是很少离开这个主体的。但是他们实际上还是可以离开主体做一些的事情的啊。当然是，那他也，对，这是他说这是一方面，另外一方面听他怎么讲。Okay, what about the other aspect?
I'm reading here. It's very specific. We just read it. I'm surprised I didn't remember it better. Okay, so a self-acting adjuster has served in it. There's a lot of prerequisites to becoming a self-acting adjuster. It says number 6 has, I'm reading number 2, self-acting adjusters, right? Number 6, and then it has 6 things that a self-acting adjuster is one who, so has to have all 6 of these things. Number 6 has served in a time of crisis in the experience of some human being who was the material complement of a spirit personality entrusted with the enactment of some cosmic achievement essential to the spiritual economy of the planet. So it's one of the things that differentiates, that makes a thought adjuster a self-acting adjuster is the human's it has served in. Right? So the human experience is one of the things that makes it a self-acting adjuster. So that the human has to have played a role and served in some planetary crisis. That's one important thing.
对，他就引用这第6个这个那自我施工的调整者的那个条件，那个第6点就是在危机时刻驻居的这个人格呢，他就是说服务于这个对地球灵性体系至关重要的宇宙使命，这个使驻居他的这个思想调整者成为这个自我施工的调整者。
And it says, and number 4, has a subject who has been mustered into one of the reserve corps of destiny on an evolutionary world of mortal ascension. So, the reserve corps. Yeah, we talked about the reserve corps. I want to read about that. So
对，第4点就是被那个召集到凡人扬升计划世界上的天命储备军团之一的主体，也是他驻居的人呢，实际上是天命储备军团的成员之一啊，这也是另外的一个那个自我施工的像调整者的这么一个前提。
So yes, number 6, number 4. So it says that a self-acting adjuster has to have had a subject who's in the reserve corps of destiny. That's a very small amount of people ever serve in a reserve corps of destiny at any time on the planet. We'll read about it, but I think there's only 500 people or maybe 1,000, but there's very few people on this planet right now are in the reserve corps of destiny at but and when one dies, another replaces them. So there's always a reserve corps of destiny. And we will read about that very soon so that we all know what it is, because it's very interesting. After we finish the Chinese religion stuff, we'll start reading that as well as.
他们说，作为这个辅助读的那条线呢，我们就是当把那东方的宗教读完之后，我们会读到天命储备军团详细的阐述。Okay.
Yeah, wait 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Has a certain record in the world creature either. Wait, I have to add a little. I can't read with this. I have to. I'm having trouble seeing the. I have to add.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, now I now know a little bit better then.
No, I'm glad you asked this question because we read this last week, but I didn't really register with me what the significance of what we were reading, because it, number 1 is has a certain requisite in the evolving life of either as a temporary indweller on a type of world where justices are loaned, or on an actual has a certain fusion planet where.
Yeah, so, indeed, see the 2.2 says such a monitor is either advanced or a supreme adjuster. This kind of resonates with whatever you said in the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's an okay. So a self-acting adjuster is an advanced or supreme, is in a person who has achieved the 3rd psychic circle. So is in a person who has a seraphic guardian, has achieved a 3rd psychic circle, is in a person who has made the supreme decision to do God's will, so he knows that the person he's with, they are going to fuse. That's a given. That's a fact. And he has a subject. So I'm just looking down the list. He has a subject who it's just is one who I just don't know if it's saying that. When I read it last week, I thought wait, you could read a certain
这个告诫者呢，要么是高级的，要么是至高的调整者。那么2.2，109 2.2那个是，就是说这个，对，他就是这个 自我施工的调整者，他是就是要么是高级的，要么是至高的调整者。这个是，并且就是2.4就是说呢，就是基本上来讲，这样的小调整者跟那个主体是一定会融合的，这个实际上是一个确定的一个事件啊。然后呢，这就是也回应了我的一个那个，就是说这样的个主体有可能是更容易那个执行神的旨意的。对。
So number 1 and 5, number 1 is he's supreme or advanced, or advanced or supreme. And number 5, at some point he has left the human during sleep. At some point has been temporarily detached. So a self-acting adjuster definitely has left a body to perform some task. Those are the two things. Yeah.
对，6条呢，就是说他们的确能够这个离开，在某人在这个主体他住居的主体睡眠的时候，他的确还能够脱离这个凡人心智去执行一些的任务。这也是 self-acting 自我施工的他的任务的一方面，他自己真的是自己去做事儿去了，脱离这个人格去做事儿去了。所以这些都很有趣，这6方面。
But
yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you think when it says here, you should also recognize you have been informed of the classification of adjusters in relation to experience, virgin, advanced, and supreme. You should also recognize a certain functional classification. So that means not who they are, but what they do, right? The self-acting adjusters. A self-acting adjuster is one who, and then it lists the 6 things. Do you think a self-acting adjuster is one who all these 6 things apply, or one out of the 6, any one of them, or do they need to have all of them?
I think as long as one meets one of the 6 criteria, that adjuster would be categorized as self-acting.
Yeah, good. That's how I read it last week. But now that it doesn't actually, it should say a self-acting adjuster is one who has one of the following, and it doesn't say that. It should say has one or more of the following, and it just says self-acting is one who has had, has acquired. So they may need all 6. It's not clear.
No, I don't think so. I don't
either, but it doesn't say. Do you see what I'm saying? That's a crucial word.
I know, but yeah, I think as long as, because it's functional classification, so as long as you meet one of these 6 functions, you are going to be identified functionally as self-acting adjuster. That is what I understand.
I think you're right, but these 6 things are not functions. These are requirements to do a certain function, right? These 6 things are not functions. They're just requirements. But the function comes at the end, where after it lists the 6 things, the function comes at the end where it says self-acting adjusters seem to possess a marked degree of will in all matters not involving the human personalities of their immediate indwelling. So a certain amount of will in all manners not involving the human personalities, as indicated by their numerous exploits both within and without the mortal subjects of attachment. So I agree. I think they have to have one of these 6 things, but it is not clear. So we don't know.
Yeah, but anyway,
I agree with you. That's what I think, but it doesn't say. They may have to have all 6, but probably only one, but maybe all 6.
Yeah.
The way it reads that it has to have all 6. But I think that maybe a mistake. Maybe I would say, I don't want to say the book makes mistakes, but you know what I mean.
那个 就是还得跟我讨论。那么他这6条呢，是要6条都这个条件都具备才能够被称为自我施工的调整者呢？还是具备其中1条就可以被称为自我施工的调整者？那么我是认为他就是具备其中的1条都可以是。然后呢，海迪说他也这么认为，但是呢，那个文中没有就这么很明显的这么说。他说他也不想去乱解，因为他也没有对那个文中没有说出来他必须要具备6条，或者具备其中1条就可以算，所以就是可以就是这样子。But maybe the last paragraph in page 5 give some hints on that. After the 6, it's the self-acting adjuster seem to possess a marked degree of will in all matters. That paragraph might give us some hints.
Yes, that's the function that they're talking about. So that gives us that tells us what they're capable. The 6 things are just requirements to become to be a self-acting adjuster. You need either all 6 or 1 or more of those things, and then they notice that they act in they're serving a certain function outside of the human personality.
Yeah, I think self-acting most likely means the last sentence of this paragraph. And yeah, more frequently, they function as undetected indwellers of the earthly tabernacles of their own choosing.
Where's that?
The last sentence of paragraph 1196.10.
Yes, I see it. No, I see it.
Yeah.
Such suggestions, but more frequently they function in undetected indwellers of the earthly. Well, that's just more frequently they're just doing their regular job as thought adjuster. That's all that's saying. Undetected indwellers of earthly tabernacle is us, I think. Yes, of their own choosing. Yes, that's us. We're the earthly tabernacle that they indwell. So that part is just, they're just saying most frequently they're just doing their regular job as a thought adjuster, but that's that sentence, how I interpret it. But the rest of the paragraph says, but they also are doing some work outside of you and not involved with your progress. But it also says they possess a marked degree of will in all matters not involving the human, right? As indicated by numerous exploits, both within and without the mortal subjects of attachment. Okay, in all matters not involved, possess a marked degree of will in all matters not involving, as indicated by their numerous exploits, both within and without. Okay, so what they're saying there is that they're showing a marked degree of will in matters not involving you, their person, both within and without.
Yes, within means, remember that one of the 6 criteria or characteristic that the subject has reached the 3rd psychic circle. That means, that subject actually can accomplish or, do according to God's will better. So that's why, and also the self-acting adjuster can accomplish many tasks outside that subject. So that's why this paragraph is kind of summary that, numerous exploits both within and without the mortal subjects of attachment. So either, collaborating with the subject or accomplish individual goal outside of the subjects. They both kind of more self-acting.
Yes, but I think you're right, but it doesn't say collaborating. So So what this means is that it may be also collaborating, because it talks about has served in a crisis when the human being was the material complement. That's number 6. So we know that they do serve in you, and they can serve in a person who is also doing something in a planetary crisis. That's one. But that says right there, the self-acting seem to possess marked of will in all matters not involving human personalities, not involving the personality, as indicated by the numerous exploits both within and without mortal subjects of attachment. So, like you said, yes, it could be collaborating with the subject in some planetary crisis that does not involve but that would involve the subject if the subject were involved. So what they're saying is that what they're saying there is that when the self-acting adjuster is involved with activities that do not involve you, so is not collaborating with you, they do that when they're in you and also when they leave you. That's what that's saying.
Right，就是这第5页的最后一段，实际上就是像一个总结一样，就自我形式的调整者哈，他不管是跟主体合作，就在内部，还是他自己可以出去，当主体睡觉的时候，他出去执行任务啊，无数探索，就是不管内和外，他大概都能比较自主啊，能够做他想做的事情，这是自我形式的调整者的意义。Yeah, so now
yes.
I understand this term better, self-acting.
Yes, me too, much better. But
yeah.
it says such a, now this is important too. It says such adjusters participate in numerous activities of the realm, but more frequently they function as undetected indwellers of the earth. So most of the time they are they stay in the person almost most of the time, but they're involved in numerous activities of the realm. So they're not just involved in like an occasional emergency. They're involved in a lot of things outside of you that have to do with the realm. It's like they have 2 jobs.
Yeah, 就是这些自我形式的施工，大概他们几乎是有两样工作，一个是跟你做你的想场，另外一方面他们有可能在你之外执行一些其他的任务啊，不一定跟你有特别的相关的，所以他是执行2份任务的。
And as you say, Ricky, this may be partly because, you know, out of these 6 requirements, 4 of them have to do with the human achievement. So they may be able to do 2 jobs because 1, they're more advanced, so they can handle more responsibility, right? And 2, the human is more advanced. So maybe they don't need quite as much continual guidance. You know, maybe they're doing pretty well. They know they're going to fuse. They've already committed, you know, so they can afford to do some other things too. So they're more advanced and the human is more advanced. I think there's 3 things to know what is self-acting adjusters. They are more advanced, the human is more advanced, and they do other jobs beside just monitor your thoughts.
对，就是说这个是6个要求当中呢，就是就是有一半吧，它就是有4个吧，它就是你人类那个主体，它只要达到一定的水平、一定的进化的程度啊，然后才会有这样的自我施工的调整者，就是跟他合作。那么所以就实际上是要求人类主体和这个思想调整都要非常的这个高级啊，进化就是都要水平都要比较高，类别是比较高，然后才会成就这个自我施工的调整者，他既可以来那个调整你的思维心智哈，然后又可以他独立的完成的一些工作。Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and also it says in the second to last paragraph that in number 2, section 2 that we're reading, supreme and self-acting adjusters. So both types. We'll read about supreme, I think, in a minute. But supreme and self-act can leave the human body at will. So that's another thing. But when they say that, it sounds to me like the virgin and the advanced can't, but the supreme and the self-acting can. That's what it sounds like to me. That the virgin and the advanced adjusters cannot leave the human body at will. Because why would it say supreme and self-acting adjusters can leave the human body at will, right?
就倒数第二段，这个就是109.210那一段是说，至高类和自我形式类调整者可以随意离开人体。那么下话就说，那么初始类调整者和高级类调整者是不可以随意离开人体的就是我们可以这样根据这句话来推断，所以并不是所有的思想调整都可以随意离开人体的。
But it says they very rarely even temporarily leave the mortal.
对，就是暂时的离开嘛。
Hold on one second. And then it says the superacting adjusters. Now, I don't know what they mean by superacting instead of self-acting. I don't think it's going to explain. So I think that what they mean by superacting is self-acting, because there's no section. It says personalized adjusters. Yeah, it doesn't, there's no section about superacting adjusters. So I think when they say superacting, they mean self-acting. The superacting adjusters are those who have achieved the conquest of the entrusted tasks and only wait to do. Well, no, that could just, well, it depends whether they have to have all 6 of these or any one of them. If they have to have all 6, then superacting would mean any self.
Yeah, I assume that the last paragraph, the superacting adjuster, 我们现在是在最后一段哈，最后就是第二部分最后一段。那个他这个地方说到超级形式的超级形式的 versus 前面呢 self-acting. Now, I think the superacting is, yeah, as you said, are those self-acting adjusters who have accomplished the goal, whatever they are going to, they were given all the tasks, and then they were called superacting. So as long as they accomplish all goals, they are just the wait for the dissolution of the material life.
Yeah, and that would go with number 3. Has a subject who has made supreme decision, has entered to solemn betrothal, the adjuster looks before into the time of actual fusion and reckons the union as an actual fact. That's number 3. It goes with that. And the superacting adjusters, the last paragraph, are those who have achieved the conquest of their entrusted task, only await the dissolution. So, I agree. I think this could be a little clearer, this whole section, but I think the superacting adjuster is the advanced self-acting adjuster. Let's just assume that.
对，就是他也同意，就是说那个这个地方的超级形式的调整者应该是高级的自我形式调整者。Okay, so, good.
Yeah, and one thing and then I'll read the number section 3, relation of adjusters to mortal types.
Yeah, 那就是现在就是我们可以读第3部分调整者与凡人类型的关系。
One takeaway that I'll just mention is on this from reading what we just read is that what we have with the adjuster is a real partnership. All of our advances, their advances depend on our advances.
对，他就是有一个信息要告诉大家的，就是说我们跟这样调整者的关系，实在来讲是一个伙伴关系啊。我们的人格方面的进展跟那个是跟这个是特别相关的，这不是一方面的事情。
They're achieving their purpose by, I would say, guiding us towards God. The better they guide us, and the more determined we are to get on that path to God, the more advanced they become.
对，就是说我们定义，如果遵从神的旨意的话，那么他就会指导我们更好，那么他也就同时也成为更高级的调整者。
But some of us, some people who are born into the reserve corps of destiny, that has to do with their innate attributes, because this is their first life as a mortal, and they're already in the reserve corps of destiny. They've been, they've been appointed for that special task based on their innate abilities. So that has nothing to do with a thought adjuster's influence when they're put in the reserve corps of destiny. Although if they are in the reserve corps, they're automatically going to get a self-acting adjuster. You can be sure of that.
对，那些的被指派到天使那个就是天命预备军团的，那么他们就是天生就是有这种特征啊、能力呀，就是这个可以承担这个任务，然后才被分配给一个就是自我施工的调整者来共同完成某些任务。
Okay, so we're in paper 109.
Yes.
I know you've said all this in Chinese. Relation of adjusters to universe creatures, and we're reading section 3 today. Relation of adjusters to mortal types, and I am beginning in English.
OK，那就是我们的109篇呢，思想调整者与他的宇宙造物的关系。那么第3部分是调整者与凡人类型的关系。
The character of the detailed work of mystery monitors varies in accordance with the nature of their assignments as to whether or not they are liaison or fusion adjusters. Some adjusters are merely loaned for the temporal lifetimes of their subjects. Others are bestowed as personality candidates with permission for everlasting fusion if their subjects survive. There is also a slight variation in their work among the different planetary types, as well as in different systems and universes. But on the whole, their labors are remarkably uniform, more so than are the duties of any of the created orders of celestial beings. So that's just talking about, more than any other order of celestial being in all the universes, the job, the task of thought adjusters are more uniform.
就是他们像调整者的工作是非常统一的，比任何受造灵界存有类别的职责都要统一。
Because you have to realize this is throughout all the 7 super universes, all of the inhabited planets, all of the advanced mortals, that are advanced beyond, after they've had to bestow a son, for instance, they're no longer primitive beings. We all have thought adjusters. It's throughout the entire super master universe. Wait, I'm mixed up today. I'm mixed up between I always get mixed. Okay, which is the grand universe and which is the master? I always get mixed up.
Grand consists of 7 super
Yeah,
universes, right?
okay. So yeah, so throughout the grand universe, which is the 7 super universes, all the local universes have inhabited planets, and all the mortals on all the planets have thought adjusters, right? And they operate in a more uniform, more similar way than any other created beings. I know I just said that, but I'm saying it again.
他就说在一个超级宇宙吧，应该是超级宇宙这些的地方宇宙啊，这些的那个他那个凡人就是受造物，他们就被赋予这个在一定条件下赋予这思想调整者来帮助他们进化。
Now, we know, well, I don't know if we all know, but we've mentioned before that, there are certain types of beings, mortal beings, that they don't merge with their adjuster. So in that case, but they do have an adjuster, they say loaned for the temporal lifetimes. So they have an adjuster during their life on Earth, even though for some reason those types of beings are not going to fuse with that adjuster.
对，就是有一些思想调整，有一些呢，凡人就跟他们住居的思想调整者融合，有的是没有融合，所以思想调整相当于就是借给他们用一用，暂时用一用的。
But we are not that type. We are fusion type mortals. So all of us, everyone on this planet has the potential to fuse with their adjuster.
对，这一段他就讲到那个任务性质的不同哈，神秘告诫者也就是思想调整者嘛，就是他们也可能是联络类调整者，也可能是融合类调整者。融合类的调整者就是他也就是说目的就是跟人那个结合是要最终融合的，然后达到这个人格的永久续存。另外一类联络类的大概就是他们就是暂时给我们用一下，然后还要离开的。那是这两种，他说就是我们跟我们现在就是说结合的那个思想调整都属于融合类的调整者。
So they call the adjusters who are just being loaned for one lifetime to a mortal. When they're on a planet with those kind of mortals, they're called liaison adjusters, and adjusters that have the capability to fuse with the human mortal subject of their indwelling. They're called fusion. So there's the 2 types, liaison and fusion.
对，他就说这强调就是联络类调整者还是融合类调整者，是根据这个具体工作特点任务的不同，可以有这样的2类。
So that says at last they just say there's a slight variation. So their work is very, very similar on all the worlds, but there's a slight variation in their work among the different planetary types, as well as in different systems. So that means that, there's that we're going when later we're going to read about different types of mortals. There's a great variation in the types of mortals based on the conditions, the physical conditions of a planet. There are beings who live in the water. There's beings who can fly. There are beings who don't breathe through their mouth. There's all kinds of different beings based on the physical conditions of a planet. So they're saying in their work varies a little bit if they're in different types of beings.
他说这个地方就是不同的行星类型以及不同的系统和宇宙中啊，这个思想调整者的工作有轻微的差异。那么他就说那个就是不同的星球的物理环境啊，条件不同啊，有的是在生活在水里边哈，那些凡人类型，有的是就是用口呼吸的，就是大概就是他们的生命形态不同。那么就是根据这些的不同，也和他这个思想调整者的工作性质、任务性质也不大一样。
And I interpret that to mean, why would their work vary? Well, their work might be a little bit different with if they're in a liaison than in a fusion candidate. And maybe if it's a drastically different type of physical being, maybe they have to communicate, maybe their brains work a little differently. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe they have to just communicate a little, it just is slight variations. So maybe they have to communicate a little differently to extremely different types of beings.
他说主要是可能就是那个交流的那些稍微的差别，他强调第一段强调工作性质非常统一，但是呢，那些细微的差别有可能是，基于他这个根据这个受造物的形态啊、功能啊不同，这个交流的方式有所不同。
And this could also be why I'm pretty sure that when a person fails to survive, an adjuster comes back in another person, they usually pick someone who's a similar type of being, type of mortal. They don't care if it's they don't care if it's female or male, but they want the same type.
这能解释为什么思想调整者他如果那个被驻居的如果没有达到永久续存，然后他再继续选择新的宿主的时候，他要选择同样的一类，那么就是说他的经验是可以以前跟这一类的凡人啊那个生物驻居的时候，那个积攒的经验还可以重新就是应用到同类的这个造物身上就是说不分男女的。
And that would be because they have already gained experience in finding the best ways to communicate with that type of being.
对，因为他们已经找到了跟这一类的生物交流的一个合适的方式，那么对他们要把这个经验应用到新的实践当中。
Okay, next paragraph. On certain primitive worlds, the series 1 group, the adjuster, that's the type of primitive world. It's called the series 1 group. On certain primitive worlds, the series 1 group, the adjuster indwells the mind of the creature as an experiential training, chiefly for self-culture and progressive development. Virgin adjusters are usually sent to such worlds during the earlier times when primitive men are arriving in the valley of decision, but when comparatively few will elect to ascend the moral heights beyond the hills of self-mastery and character acquirement to attain the higher levels of emerging spirituality. Many, however, who fail of adjuster fusion do survive as spirit-fused ascenders. The adjusters receive valuable training and acquire wonderful experience in transient association with primitive minds, and they are able subsequently to utilize this experience for the benefit of superior beings on other worlds. Nothing of survival value is ever lost in all the wide universe. They say that that's italicized.
Yeah. 对，这个他刚才读的这一段对应我们屏幕上显示的是109.32这一段，是 原始序列这个序列一组这个调整者进驻到塑造物的心智当中，那么是怎么样的情况？
So we should start with that last sentence because I think of that all the time. Nothing of survival value is ever lost in the wide universe.
那他要从最后一句话来讲起。那么在所有广阔的宇宙中，没有任何具有续存价值的东西会丢失。他说他经常会思考这一句话。
You could think of it as you know, very environmentally adept, you know, like everything is recycled, everything is repurposed. Nothing of value is ever just dies or disappears or doesn't get any kind of future purpose, serve any kind of future purpose. Every single thing. So when, you know, when you're feeling sad because a tree died or a animal died or a person died and you think they might not make it, what this is saying, everything of survival value, everything of value of that entity will continue, will live on in some meaningful way.
他就说那个实际上哈，那个所有的是这个宇宙当中的一切的事物都是回收利用的，没有什么东西真正的死了或者消失了，都其实可以被用来做那个未来的一个用途。当你看到树啊、动物啊或者人死了，实际上那个他们这个存有实际上还在继续生存，那个总是有意义的。
When a person does not survive, when they choose not to survive mortal death, you know, when they choose not to take the great adventure to eternity, everything good about them, everything of value is absorbed into the supreme being.
那就是说，那就是如果一个凡人他就是选择不续存，不到永久，那个他就是凡人那个的死亡，之后呢，那么他所以前积攒的经验也都是相当于那个就是壮大了那个至高者神，这是他的经验的部分，也都是相当于那个喂养了，或者是就是那个对扩展了至高者神的这个经验范围。
So that person no longer exists and will never exist again. But all of the good, every good thought they had, every good deed they did it still retains its value. It's not just thrown away. It's not lost. It becomes absorbed into the supreme. And I don't know what that means. Like, does the supreme being incorporate that into its personality and memory and identity, or do those qualities and that goodness get somehow become another future person, get incorporated into a new personality that God is bestowing on a new person? I don't know, but I don't know.
他就说那个人作为他单独的人格不存在了，但是呢，那个他的那些的好的想法呀、行为呀，那么都是保留它的价值，永远不会消失。那么至高者神，他是怎么用这一部分的，是吧？他是整合他自己的人格当中存有的价值当中呢，还是把这些的品质用来，就是说赋予新的这个人格？那这个他怎么运作的，他也不太清楚。
Now, I know that after the spirit of truth is poured out on the world, everyone receives a thought adjuster.
那他只知道，就是说，当真理之灵就是倾倒到地球上之后，每个人都得到一个思想调整者。
But on primitive worlds, before a bestowal sun comes, when when people are primitive, I don't know how many of them get thought adjusters. Maybe only those who have who show a little bit of spiritual potential. Because not everyone gets one, so I'm not sure. Well, we can read about it later. We can find wherever it says it, when we read about primitive worlds, but I'm not sure. Maybe it'll tell us in the thought adjuster section, maybe it'll explain, but I'm not sure how many or who, but I do know that not every primitive person gets a thought adjuster. But what it's saying here is that when they do get them, it's mainly serving the thought adjuster. They're getting valuable practice experience because most of those people will not fuse. They don't have the spiritual potential, but the thought adjuster, like the virgin, they're getting virgin thought, inexperienced virgin thought adjusters. Their first person that they indwell might be one of these primitive beings, and they're getting valuable experience.
对，他不知道，就是在那个原始社会呢，在迈克尔那个之子来之前呢，那么实际上有多少人才能够被分配到这个思想调整者？那么也是很有限的数目，那么只有是那种稍微显示出一些属灵的潜力的人，大概才有这个资格。那么分配到这样的原始社会的思想调整者，应该都是比较的来就是实践来获得经验的那些初始类的所以他们就是获得这样的在短暂的交往当中获得了宝贵的训练，获得一些奇妙的经验来给他们以后用这种经验在更高级的受造物身上这个为他们造福来做准备。
And it also this is also interesting where it says many, however, who fail of adjuster fusion do survive as spirit fused descenders. So the primitive beings many primitive beings, I would say, I think it says here most, during the but when comparatively few will elect to ascend the moral lights. So on very primitive worlds, few primitive beings have the spiritual capacity to choose eternal life. But some of those, because they can't make that choice, they won't fuse with their adjuster. But it says that some of them will become spirit fused. That means they'll fuse with the infinite spirit. And that means they will have eternal life, but just they won't have the same path as a God fused mortal being, where we end up in the core of the mortal core of finality and stuff. The spirit fused individual has a different path, but they will never die. They will have life eternal.
那大部分原始的人类呢，他们缺乏能力去选择那个永久的续存，那么因为他们也没有做这个续存的这个选择呢，但是就是有一部分呢，他们可能是就是选择了跟那个上灵去融合，那么相当于通过那个方式也达到了一种续存。
So the universe is always giving everyone every possible chance, So they're saying in other words, they're saying, listen, you're so primitive. It's not your fault. You're not spiritual. But if you even have an inkling, if you're even trying as a primitive being, at least you'll have spirit fusion.
对，它就是给我们各种的机会啊，那个去达到续存。你只要是尝试了，它大概就是给你这样的机会，你至少跟上灵结合，这是也达到了那个另外一种程度的一种续存。
So, and it says the adjusters receive valuable training and acquire wonderful experience in association with primitive minds. And they are subsequently to use this experience for the benefit of superior beings on other worlds. You can imagine how that it's very difficult for a thought adjuster, a fragment of God, to live in a primitive human mind. It's one step above an animal, like an ape, like very. So you can imagine how bizarre that must be, how challenging and how strange it must be. But the experience is so valuable, because then when they're in a more advanced human, it's a lot easier for them to communicate. But because they've already had that difficult experience trying to communicate to an almost animal mind.
对，那么就是你可以想象这个神的片段在我们里边哈，跟那个刚刚就是说从动物比动物稍微高级一点的原始的人类去交流是多么的困难。
So you can be sure that the more advanced people, they rarely, if ever, get virgin adjusters. The virgin adjusters are going to these more primitive worlds.
对，基本上这些的初始类的调整者吧，往往去到更原始的人类去工作。
To acquire this invaluable experience.
对，得到这种非常宝贵的经验。
It says on certain primitive worlds, the adjuster indwells minds of the creature as experiential training, chiefly for self-culture and progressive development. So it sounds to me like the main reason primitive people have thought adjusters is for the training and self-culture of the thought adjuster, since most of them are going to choose not to survive.
对对，就是说这个金珠的原始人那个里边，主要是其实为了训练这个思想调整者，因为他们也知道这些原始人很少会选择永久的续存。
Okay, next paragraph. On another type of world, the Series 2 group, the adjusters are merely loaned to mortal beings. Here, the monitors can never attain fusion personality through such indwelling, but they do afford great help to their human subjects during the mortal lifetime, far more than they are able to give to Urantia mortals. That's interesting. The adjusters are here loaned to the mortal creatures for a single lifespan as patterns for their higher spiritual attainment, temporary helpers in the intriguing task of perfecting a survival character. The adjusters do not return after natural death. These surviving mortals attain eternal life through spirit fusion. I'm going to read the next paragraph. On worlds such as Urantia, the Series 3 group, there is a real betrothal with the divine gifts, a life and death engagement. If you survive, there is to be an eternal union, an everlasting fusion, the making of man and adjuster one being. So that's interesting, because they're on a series 1 group is a series 1 group of adjusters or worlds, a series 1 group of worlds is where their people are still primitive. Okay, some
那第一
views
类呢，就是刚才我们读到的呢，就是属于跟原始类的那个凡人接触。那么这一页的第一段是属于序列二组呢，就是是另外一种类型的。
I'm not sure. I don't think everyone even gets a thought adjuster, but we know that most people do not survive mortal death, do not go on to eternity on a series 1 group.
对，第一类的基本上就是那在原始人类当中很少会有人选择永久的续存。
But some do. Some do.
有一
And
些
on Infanta were the first humans, and they did.
对，像安东啊、方达呀这一类的，他们是属于原始人类，但是他们也选择了永久的续存。
And then other beings, they don't merge with they don't merge with their thought adjustment, but they do achieve spirit fusion. So on a series 1 type world, in a primitive world, beings can achieve spirit fusion if they're not quite spiritual enough for thought adjuster fusion.
对，那些选择续存的，在原始社会当中，可能选择是跟上灵的融合，那可能还没有能力，就是选择跟上主的父的融合。
After the bestowal sun comes to a planet and the spirit of truth is poured out on the planet, and when we're no longer a series 1 or 2 group or series 2, or well, we're never a series 2.
对，那这个真理之灵泼洒到地球上之后呢，我们肯定不是第一类，肯定也不是第二类，我们是第三类的。我们是要那像调整者是要跟我们订立一个永久的婚约，要跟我们达到永恒的结合的融合的。
Then spirit fusion is no longer a possibility. Like for us, for our type of being, we're either going to have thought adjuster fusion or we're not going to survive. We don't have that spirit fusion
对，
option.
与灵的那个融合的这个已经不在选项当中了，所以我们或者就跟父的片段像调整者融合，或者就是没有续存，就是第二类的已经不是选项当中的了。
With some exceptions, like if you die as a young child, you might go to the Marancha world and be able to have spirit fusion, because then you haven't had the experience of living your life out as a mortal, which is necessary to achieve fusion with your thought adjuster. But instead you go right to the Marancha world. In that case, you can achieve spirit fusion.
除非是在很年少的时候就去世了，然后呢，就是被投生到这个在下世界，有可能那个你是选择的是这个实现的那种永生，是通过与灵这个上灵的融合来实现的。
So what I found interesting in this paragraph was that when it says here on the series 2 group where they're just loaned, where they're liaison, but those types of beings never fuse, the monitors can never attain fusion personality, but they do afford great help to their human subjects during their lifetime, far more than they are able to give to Urantia mortals. So that I found interesting. So even though
这一句说那个这是第二类哈，上面第一段这个第二类当中呢，调整者不跟这个人格融合，但是在凡人的一生当中呢，却为人类主体提供了巨大的帮助，这种帮助远远超过他们能够给予软下凡人的帮助。然后海蒂认为这句话很有趣。
So I don't know why these spirit fusion type of beings are able to get even more guidance from their thought adjusters, but for some reason, the thought adjusters are able to give them even more help than they give us. I don't know why.
对，他也不明白为什么说在这种最终跟那个上灵融合的这一类的凡人当中，为什么思想调整者临时帮助他们，却给他们巨大的帮助，这个远远超过他们能够给予月亮下凡人的，他也不明白为什么。
Just think, you might someday be on the Marancha worlds, and you might meet a spirit fused being who your thought adjuster has indwelled for a lifetime, who knows that person intimately, right? You're going to fuse with your thought adjuster. You're going to become one, and your thought adjuster is going to have indwelled this spirit fused person, and you're going to meet up, and that's going to be a strange meeting.
对，他说有可能你将来你跟你的思想调整者融合之后，你在下世界能够碰到一个跟上灵融合的个体，然后那个个体曾经被你的思想调整者曾经就是说驻居和帮助过，那是他就说那这样的会面一定会非常有趣的。
Your thought adjuster will surely recognize that person. Will that person recognize you and your thought adjuster?
那你的思想调整肯定会认出这个个体，但是那个个体就是被上灵融合的那个个体，他能够认出你和你的思想调整者吗？这个是个问题。
Okay. Okay, the next paragraph. In the three-brained mortals of this series of worlds. So the series 3 group is we're in the series 3 group, right? The series 1 group is the primitive men. The series 2 group is the liaison, where they're just on loan, and the series 3 is where they can have they're more advanced, and they're more likely to fuse. That's the series 3 group.
他说这3个序列呢，第一类呢根本就是跟原始不太有可能去进行任何的融合。第二类呢，思想调整者只是作为一个联络者，就是驻居的，就暂时驻居的，然后不去跟那个融合。第3类呢，就是像我们这个月亮下这个世界，就是思想调整来，它的主要的目的就是要跟我们来融合，使我们达到永恒的续存。这3类。
So in the series 3 group, which we are part of, some beings, there's three types of mortal beings in terms of their types of brains, right? There's
只有3类的凡人，根据他们有多少个大脑决定的。
There are the 1-brained, the 2-brained, and the 3-brained types of mortals.
那凡人当中有一个脑的，属于2个脑的，有3个脑的。
We're the middle group, the 2-brained, and you can see our brains are divided into 2 sections mainly.
对，我们是属于双脑型的，就是我们的月亮下的种族。对，那个我们有左右2个大脑。
It's better to be 2-brained than 1-brained.
那当然就是有双脑比这个有单脑要好呀。
It would be nice to be 3-brained, but we didn't get lucky.
就是有3脑更好啊，但是没那么幸运我们。
So in the 3-brained mortals of worlds, the adjusters are able to gain far more actual contact during their lifetime than with us poor one brain or two brain types. But after death, when you're in the Morancha world, it all evens out, and then it's after that you're all sort of you're no longer limited by you don't have material brains. You have your soul, you're thinking with your souls. So it all evens out in the Morancha worlds. But on the okay.
当然就是都达到续存了之后呢，当然你有几个大脑就不重要了，没有影响了。
But here on the Earth worlds, the three-brained types of beings are far more they have a far more spiritual capacity than the two-brained or the one-brained types.
对，那这是在这个地球的三维世界里边，那么有三个脑的，凡人肯定比那个其他的一脑二脑的凡人具有更高的灵性的能力。
So they're saying with their actual contact, yeah. So we're talking about, on our with two-brained people on a world like ours, you would have to reach your first psychic circle, that achieve all 7 psychic circles to have actual communication with your thought adjuster. But on the three-brained, with the three-brained types of beings on those worlds, the adjusters gain they very often have are able to gain far more actual contact with their subjects during the temporal life. It's common for them to be able to yeah.
OK， 像我们双脑的人呢，那得达到7个心灵圆圈，那么大概都完成了，才能够直接跟这个像长征者有直接实质的一种交流。但是对三脑的凡人来说，那么他们可以在世间的生活当中就能够获得这个更多的跟思想调整者的实际的接触。
And then the next paragraph says what I just said, that I just said before, that if the virgin adjusters are going to the primitive people on the series 1 worlds, then that would mean that the series 2 worlds or the series 3 group that we live on, you would be getting a more you would always be getting an advanced or a supreme type, and that's exactly what the next paragraph says, which I'll read.
对，下一段呢就可能会讲到，就是说那个初始类的调整者被分配到原始社会，但是呢，高级的和至高类的可能就被分配到第2和第3序列的世界。
So it says on the two-brained worlds, subsequent to the sojourn of a paradise bestowal son, virgin adjusters are seldom assigned to persons who have unquestioned capacity for survival. It is our belief that on such worlds, practically all adjusters indwelling intelligent men and women of survival capacity belong to the advanced or to the supreme type.
Hold on. Yeah, from this paragraph on, we have not read any Chinese translation yet. I just wonder who in the audience would like to read the Chinese translation part for us. Can I have a new pair that help me out on this reading the Chinese translation part? 那就是我们要找一个伙伴给我们读这个中文的翻译部分，因为从这一页开始，就没有中文翻译部分还没有读过。哪一个伙伴给我们读中文翻译的部分？哪一个伙伴方便呢？如果都不方便，我就来读，但是如果有的话，我就可以稍微松口气。都不方便，那我就来读了哈。OK。 OK，这个就是109.3.6这一段哈，那个他刚才读了英文，我来读中文。在双脑世界在一个天堂赠予之子逗留之后，初始类调整者很少被分配给那些具有无可置疑的续存能力的人。我们相信，在这样的世界里，几乎所有驻居在具有续存能力的智性男女之内的调整者都属于高级或至高类型。
So they know when you're born, they know about your spiritual capacity. It is a physical thing. It has to do with your DNA. It must have to do with your DNA, right?
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, I mean, you don't have a thought adjuster yet, so that's why some people are mustered into the core of destiny, the core of destiny, and the reserve core of destiny, and some they know whether you have spiritual capacity for survival. If you do, you're going to get an advanced or a supreme adjuster. If you don't, it says on the two brain worlds subsequent to the sojourn of a paradise bestowal son, after the spirit of truth is poured out on us and the son has come, virgin adjusters are seldom assigned to persons who have unquestioned capacities for survival. So that means if you're iffy, if you don't have such great capacity survival, then you might get a virgin adjuster, because the chances are you're not going to survive. But what that's saying is that among us, even though we've had a bestowal son, even though we're no longer primitive beings, there are among us basically people who are like primitive beings. They just don't have much spiritual capacity. And sometimes you meet people like that. They're not, they don't have to be bad people or stupid people. They just don't have like a spiritual bone in their body.
对，就是说我们出生以后呢，实际上就是根据我们的DNA 啊，祖先的性质，就是说，即使还我就是可以就是已经你的那个属灵的能力，其实它都是这样调整，它都是有评估的，即使现在我们都有迈克尔赠予之子来自他的释放的真理之灵覆盖我们，但是有一些人呢，还是会像那个原始人一样，可能虽然不坏，但是他们就是没有那个属灵的骨头去选择这样的续存，所以呢，就是对这样的人呢，也许就不一定来给他分配高级或者至高类的调整者，因为他们续存的可能性实在是很小。
So those kind of beings, when the planet is settled in light and life later on, our DNA will be so much more evolved by then. There won't be beings like that among us, but there are now.
对，那个当我们地球锚定在光和生命当中的时候，我们的 DNA 也会有所这个进化吧？对，大概像刚才这个意思。
So people like that, they're not capable of really understanding or relating to God the Father. So there's no point in an advanced adjuster indwelling them. They're not, but those kind of people, I think, might join a cult or might get into some kind of they might be very superstitious, or they might get into some kind of voodoo or very primitive religion, because they're really they're living among us today, but they're spiritually they're very primitive.
对，那些有一些人不太听话的人，他们就是有可能就是比较迷信啊，然后或者是参加一些的邪教组织啊，或者是有一些比较原始的那些的宗教，信奉比较原始的宗教，那么就是他们的灵性能力是有限的，就是认识上父的这个能力是有限的。
Okay, so then it explains a little bit about this in the next paragraph. In the next paragraph, in many of the early evolutionary races of Urantia, so we're talking about the series 1 type of world, one group, primitive world. 3 groups of beings existed. There were those who were so animalistic that they were utterly lacking in adjuster capacity. There were those who exhibited undoubted capacity for adjusters and promptly received them when the age of moral responsibility was attained. That's, around age 6. There was a third class who occupied a borderline position. They had capacity for adjuster reception, but the monitors could only indwell the mind on the personal petition of the individual. And I'll let you translate that paragraph.
Yes，这一段是109.3.7。在月染下的许多早期进化种族中，存在着3组存有。有些人是如此的动物性，以至于他们完全缺乏调整者能力；有些人表现出毫无疑问的调整者能力。当他们达到道德责任的年龄时，他们很快就接受了这种能力。还有第3组人，他们处于边缘地带，他们有能力接受调整者，但是告诫者只能在个人的请求下才内住到心智当中。
I'm coming back. I had to wash my eyes because I.
就是这3组人嘛，第1组人相当于那个已经说了，对，那个完全缺乏这个接受调整者的能力。第2类人呢，就是当他达到道德责任的年龄，就是6岁左右的时候，做出第一个道德选择的时候，就是很快就调整者就进驻来了。第3组人呢是，对，就是他们可以接受，可以不接受，但是这时如果他们主动的接受，那么像调整者也会进驻到他们的心智当中。第2类相当于像调整者，就是他们天然就是有这个能力的话，那么像调整者没有经允许，也没有经请求，也就进驻了。第3类，对，我们就是相当于后天的一种自发自觉的一种请求下才内住到心智当中。这就是这3种凡人类型对应的3种不同的进驻的状态。
Okay, so you read the next paragraph too?
No.
You just read the one in many that starts
3.7. Yeah. I think the first category you already explained, that those people who lack of spiritual capacity to receive thought adjuster.
Yeah.
The second one, the thought adjuster was bestowed upon them when the age certain age is reached, they automatically accept, was given this. And the third group, they have to, because they are in the marginal borderline position, so they have to kind of under personal petition in order to accept, to receive the monitor in duality.
Yeah, it's a little confusing to me because in many of the early evolutionary races, 3 groups of beings existed. So in many of the early races, not all,
他说这个地方是第一句是早期进化的种族中啊，早期进化种族当中就已经有这些的分别了。
I don't know why it says in many of the early races of Urantia, but not all. By saying in many, it means not all, but I think that could mean because the red race were maybe a little more spiritual than the other races. I think that's what it might be saying.
但是他不知道为什么这个地方他提到 many， 就是很多早期进化种族中，对，他大概就是因为每个种族它这个属灵进化能力是不同的，他认为，红种人的属灵能力大概比较强吧。
I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they're saying many races, but that might be why.
对，他说有可能这个是这种差别的确存在嘛。
So there were those who were so animalistic that they were utterly lacking in adjusted capacity. That's one group. There were those who exhibited undoubted capacity and promptly received them when they, were 6 years old or something. That's the second group. There was a third who occupied a borderline. They had capacity, but the monitors could only indwell the mind on the personal petition. So they were borderline. They had capacity. There were those who exhibited undoubted capacity. Okay. So on a primitive world, when a primitive being has absolute spiritual capacity, they get a thought adjuster.
对，如果他有毫无疑问的调整者能力，那么他们就是没有那个，对，就很快就被给予思想调整者的赠予。
Sorry. Okay, when there are those who are so animalistic that they are just completely lacking in spiritual capacity.
对啊，那么原始就是如果这个还是那么就是发展的那个进化程度太低太动物性，那么就是没有资格，没有这个能力显现。
Sorry, there's a third group who are borderline. They have some spiritual capacity, but it's not known whether they have enough to survive or not. But if that group personal petition, so if a person in that third group, the borderline group, so that means they don't know how much spiritual capacity they have. They don't know if they have enough for a thought adjuster to make any difference or not, right? They don't know. But if that being during his lifetime petitions for a thought adjuster, which now how would a primitive being make a personal petition of they would pray, they would speak to God, they would have some concept or feeling of God, and they would ask for guidance or help or something to, because they're not going to say, oh, can I have a thought adjuster, please? Right? They're a primitive being on a primitive world. So what could their petition be? It must be some heartfelt desire for help from a God or from a higher source or a higher being, right?
Yeah. 那么这个原始人他怎么就是来是那个呼求那个帮助呢？就是他要就是以非常强烈的内心的渴望，就是想得到高级的那个灵性存有的帮助，大概这个就可以了吧？对，不知道这原始人怎么样呼求帮助。
So in other words, they don't automatically receive an adjuster because they don't know if they have spiritual capacity or not. But during their lifetime, if they show that spiritual capacity, that's when then they automatically immediately receive an adjuster. So there's probably one standing by.
啊，就说有可能就是有一些思想调整，大概就是在这些人呢，就是待命的状态。如果他们要求呢，那么有这种需要呢，表现出这种属灵的能力呢，向着神的需求神的这种能力呢，那么就给他进驻。这个是可进可不进的，就是在于主体是否是那种配合性的，或者有这种需要请求。
Well, we don't know if the adjuster comes immediately when they ask, for guide, when they make their petition in some way. So I don't know if the adjuster's standing by or not. But most likely, the way the world is so efficient, the way it works so beautifully, most likely there's already adjusters who are ready and willing to indwell these beings if they should make the petition. But that's just my guess, because I think they wouldn't want much time to go by between asking for guidance and getting and receiving guidance, right?
他也不知道是不是就是有思想调整在那儿待命呢，还是就是请求了之后经过多长时间就能进驻呢？但是他想的话应该是非常有效率的吧，从请求到给予应该不会耽误很久的。
So the last paragraph in this section is, but with those beings who are virtually disqualified for survival by disinheritance through the agency of unfit and inferior ancestors, many a virgin adjuster has served a valuable preliminary experience in contacting evolutionary mind, and thus has become better qualified for a subsequent assignment to a higher type of mind on some other world. So, I'll let you read that.
最后一段哈，这一部分。但是借着那些由于不健康和劣等祖先的原因而丧失续存资格的存有，许多初始类调整者在接触进化心智方面积累了宝贵的初步经验，从而变得更有资格被分配到其他世界更高类型的心智中。
So that's very interesting because I was wondering if these primitive beings who have no spiritual capacity get a thought adjuster, but it doesn't say they all do. But it says, but with those beings who are virtually disqualified through the agency, many a virgin adjuster has served. So not always, but often a virgin adjuster will serve even in a primitive being with no spiritual capacity, just to get the experience of working inside such a mind.
对，就是说这个即使是缺乏灵性能力的，然后初始调整者也会去进驻，因为这样的话，虽然不能融合，但是也获得了跟这一类的存有这就交流的能力和经验。
So that's interesting because they know that the adjuster knows that this person is not going to make it. They just don't have the right DNA. They come from, their mother was primitive, their father was primitive. Nothing spiritual about this DNA at all. So, but they indwell them anyway, just to get the experience.
对，他们知道他们就是可能比较原始啊，那个 DNA 都不具备这种的潜力啊，但是他们还是 选择进入到这样的个体当中来获得必要的经验。
So we can all know that our thought adjusters have had experience with many. We know that many of our thought adjusters, the ones who have lived in primitive beings, because many have maybe lived in, the series 2 worlds, the liaison, right? The liaison groups where they had even more contact with their persons. But the ones who have lived in the primitive beings, we know that for them, as annoying as we are, we're not as annoying. We're not as annoying as their last people were.
嗯
Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
Okay. I'm saying at our point, we don't have virgin adjusters. We have advanced or supreme, right?
Yeah.
Which is nice. But you know how we feel sometimes our adjusters must be very frustrated trying to get through to us, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying if your adjuster lived their last life in a primitive being with no spiritual capacity at all, then they're kind of relieved to be in your mind. You're not so as annoying as you might think. They're thinking, they're quite happy that they can get through even a little bit.
I still didn't get that. If they are
Okay.
living in a primitive mind, what
So
live their last life in primitive mind?
okay, so we have it. We get a supreme or advanced. We get an adjuster with experience, right? So now maybe they have experience living on a liaison world where it says they have even more contact with the human. In that case, when they come to live in us, it must be a little bit frustrating because we're less receptive, right?
对，他就讲到那个，那就是在第二类嘛，第二类是联合型的嘛，联合型的就是他跟人有更多的接触，但是他没有义务跟那个凡人去融合啊。如果是他进驻了这样的，然后又到第三类，就是说试图跟我们融合。OK。
But if they've lived another life in a very primitive being with no spiritual capacity, beings who are virtually disqualified through the agency of unfit and inferior ancestors, right? If they've lived in a being who is almost an animal, who has zero capacity for survival, then after that experience, communicating with someone like us is less frustrating. It's more enjoyable.
他就说，像调整者如果是进驻了那种灵可能续存的那些原始类的之后，然后再进驻到我们里面，跟我们可能就有更多的交流，那么大概就是不会那么烦恼。
So one of the things that I've been thinking about the last few weeks that's so fascinating to me is that the gods, higher beings, angels, and even our thought adjusters, and it looks to me like even God the Father feel very what we would call human emotions, but if they all feel these emotions, like they rejoice, they feel frustration, they feel sadness, they feel joy, they feel gladness, all these emotions, we call them human emotions. Maybe human emotions are not human emotions. maybe there's a few emotions like animal fear, like the baser emotions, more like, fear and greed and contempt and jealousy. Those are the human emotions, the animal emotions. But the higher emotions, I think, are not human emotions. I think they're just all beings, or most, even God feels a wide range of emotions.
Are the emotion you think those joys, frustration, sadness, do you think they are human emotions, and also we share those emotions with God, or God share those emotions with us?
No, so what I'm saying is that I've been thinking about this a lot because it's so interesting. We as humans we think of these things as all of this wide range of emotions. We think of them as human emotions. And what I'm saying, this book is telling me, is that they're not human emotions, only the baser emotions, only are human emotions. Because those are the emotions that the gods do not feel. Your thought adjuster never feels greedy or selfish or fearful or contemptuous or jealous, right? Those would be the human emotions. But the higher emotions are not human emotions. They're just higher emotions that seem to be, I'm learning recently, are shared with angels, with higher beings, with celestial beings, and even with God himself. Definitely
就
with
是他我们那比较高的那些的情绪啊，他说他是认为这个是跟神啊、天使啊、思想调整者啊都是可以共鸣共享的，但是那比较低的那些的情绪，比如说动物来源的那种恐惧啊、贪婪呐、什么嫉妒啊，那个是不能共享的。But I don't think animal ever jealous. I don't think animal greed. They are all belongs to human emotion.
That's because you haven't met my cat.
我这个说表示不同意，我是认为这个像贪婪啊、嫉妒啊这些不是属于动物的，是人性当中的。他说你还没有遇到我的猫，他认为他在他的猫身上都看到了贪婪和嫉妒。Yeah, that because cat is so close to human beings, their mind is contaminated by human beings, by naturally.
No, don't blame me. Don't blame me. This guy got it all on his own. He was born in my house. He was born in my house. His whole life he has had enough food, he's had affection, he's been cared for, he's been spoiled, and yet when I give him food, there are 3 cats. When I give him food, if I feed the other cats too close to him, he growls and growls while he's eating. He's so afraid one of the other cats is going to take his food. They never do. They never will, because he's the big bully. They're afraid of him, but he starts growling when he eats.
他就说那只猫哈有嫉妒和这个贪婪倾向，那只猫哈，它就在他的房子里出生的呀，从小也衣食无忧的呀。他们有3只猫，但是他喂那2只猫的时候，如果跟他们太接近的话，那么这只贪婪猫呢，它就会发出很不满的那种低吼啊，它就是一个欺负人的那么一个猫啊，性情就跟另外2只就不一样。
You have to realize no one has ever taken his food. So I have to move the other cats further away from him. Now he's okay with dry food, but when I give him canned food, that's when he starts growling, or human food or meat, he gets some instinct, some very basic instinct takes over and he's afraid someone's going to steal his food.
他说他得把那个分开，吃的，就是说另外2个猫和他要分开，以防他感到不安全。他总是担心别人抢他的食物，直觉的不安全感。
But once in a great while, he'll just move aside and let another cat actually eat his food. Very rarely, but every once in a while, he's like a different cat. He decides to be generous.
不过他有的时候也会表现得非常的这个，好像大度，也不是那么太担心自己的食物被别的猫抢了。Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so these are animals. Yeah, and they can also get animals have a wide range of emotions. Sometimes he'll be crying, and he'll be okay. All I have to do is pick him up and hold him, and then he's okay.
这个猫也有很广的这情绪表达，有的时候它会哭哭得很伤心，你得把它抱起来，抱一会儿就好了。
Animals, yes, animals absolutely have fear. We know that.
对，这个动物自然就是肯定绝对的就是有恐惧，对，我们都知道。
And the Urantia book talks about animal fear the Urantia book says that the angels share most of our emotions except not the animal fear. They don't even understand our animal fear.
月下书说到我们就是天使呢，共享我们这个几乎所有的情绪，但是呢，动物来源的这种恐惧他们不懂，他们就没有。
But fear is a survival mechanism. Animals are fearful, which keeps them alive. So that's where we got that. We were animals.
对，那个恐惧是一种保护机制，那个保证这个肉体的存活的，我们就相当于从动物那里就是那个传续了这种的恐惧是一种保护性的机制。
Our fear of lightning and thunder kept us from getting struck by lightning.
我们对雷电的恐惧呢，使我们避免受雷电的攻击。
Our fear of snakes kept us from getting bitten by poisonous snakes.
我们对蛇的恐惧呢，使我们能够避开这些毒蛇的攻击。
So we needed fear for a million years. We needed fear, but most of that fear we don't need anymore, and a lot of it we still have.
对，我们有这个很久有这种恐惧，但是很多的恐惧也许现在不必要有的。
So the the gods have emotions are not just human. Emotions are universal. The higher emotions. There are higher emotions and lower emotions. The higher emotions are universal.
说高级一点的情绪是共有的，可以共享的。那低的情绪是不能共享的。高频的、低频的，大概是。
Okay. You want to go? We'll go to the Chinese religion now.
Yeah, 94. I think we are going to read section 9 and, if possible, 10.
Okay.
So we read 8th already about Buddhism.
Yes,
Shakyamuni.
we're on paper 94, the Melchizedek teachings in the Orient, and we have read section 1, 2. Oh, we didn't read all the sections. We're just reading about the Chinese religion. Yes.
我们
So
继
we
续读
read
94篇麦基喜德的教义在东方。那么，读了我们就是了解了道家呀，还有儒家在中国的传播啊，以及他们的教义的被扭曲。然后我们上回读到的一个佛教啊，释迦牟尼佛他最初的教义。那继续这个关于佛教的传播，这是第九节。
Didn't we read I think we read the Buddhist faith already 8.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did.
So
We read the last paragraph about the biggest weakness, the great weakness.
right.
And,
Right. And yeah, and also there yeah.
lack of social service, lack of unselfish social service.
Yeah.
This,
yeah.
I think I kind of endorse this statement a lot. How Christianity spread so widely in the world is because there are less isolation and more open to social service, and everyone is welcome. So it becomes a community type of service, social service. Instead, Buddhism is more like a student-teacher relationship. You have a master, and then you have a sangha, and they are kind of a cultivation group. Although the believers, non-sangha believers are also welcome, but most likely, the regular group is more kind of excluded. More have a
Yes.
very clear identification. Yeah.
I think about this all the time. Jesus, he really didn't go around preaching as much as he went around healing the sick and nurturing people. He
我翻译一下哈。我就是说到，就是因为我们读到上一次已经读到一些佛教嘛，那这个第八部分的最后一段提到那个佛教的最大的一个弱点是没有发展出一种无私的社会服务体系，是吧？那我们都知道，我们佛教寺庙啊，就是师傅啊带徒弟啊，对吧？你出家了，你就是皈依一个师傅。就是这样一个相对比较封闭的一种的体系，而不是一个像基督教一样，它几乎是面向大众的，它欢迎所有的人来，就是更是一个社区服务的性质比较多一些。然后，海迪就说，你看，像耶稣在世的时候，他也没有说就是专注于就是他的教导，他也是到处走啊去。给人带来疗愈啊，就是相当于是关心别人的疾苦的这样的一种的形象，一种的对态度。OK，I did.
It's such an important, the point you make is such an important point, and I think about it all the time.
他说你提出这一点是非常重要，其实我也一直在想这回事。
I think that is a huge mistake that Urantians are making already. They've already started making that mistake from the very beginning. The first groups of readers, they were never involved in service. Never. They were only involved in teaching.
他说那个实际上《玉苒厦之书》的传播呢，第一批的人他们已经是走偏了，相当于，那么他们专注于说要教导，而不是使服务。
And they don't you have to understand that if someone is hungry or hurting, they need that taken care of before you teach them about God. They need their basic needs. If they're heartbroken, if they're desperate, if they're fearful, those things have to be addressed before you start teaching them about God.
对，那么有些人在饥饿当中，在受伤害当中，那么他们这个基本的需求没有得到很好的照顾的话，在这种的恐惧和那个绝望当中，那么你怎么能教导他们关于神对神的信仰呢？
You know, it's once when I was 18 or quite young, I enrolled in school in a university. I got loans and I enrolled in a university, and then I had no money at all, zero. I thought they'd give me some more money to live on, but they didn't. And I was just babysitting at night and just trying to survive. And I was studying philosophy at that time. And I realized I'd be sitting in the class and I'd be hungry, and I really had no money at all. And I realized at that point that you can't study philosophy when you're hungry.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sad for you.
Oh no, it's I somehow I
Yeah， 他就是
every
讲
day
到
I
他
yeah
18岁的时候呢，就是上大学啊，有那个学生贷款呐、你没有钱来生活，就是来给人看小孩，晚上给人看小孩得点零花钱。然后呢，他有时候就在课堂上就是饿着肚子的。那个他说他那个时候读一些的哲学这方面的书，但是他就是意识到没有钱的时候，根本读哲学书是读不进去的。
it was a
没
big
有，就
lesson.
是你肚子饿的时候，你是没有心思读什么哲学书的。
It was yes, it was a big lesson for me, which I never forgot, and that is that none of these spiritual or philosophical or ideological things matter when you're hungry, but the same applies for being sick or being heartbroken or being fearful. These things have to be taken care of first. Then you can think about God and the ancients of days and Jesus and the infinite spirit, and then you can you can pray for help, but that's about as far as you get. You certainly don't want to start philosophizing when you're hungry.
对，他就是从此得到一个非常重要的教训，就是说呢，你生病啊，你非常的伤心了，心都碎了，那种的困境或者是很害怕的状态下，你是不可能来学习什么哲学呀、形而上的意识形态的东西啊，你不可能去想到什么就是上主啊、上灵啊、这是神啊这些的概念。
And Jesus was so aware of this, and he and his apostles always first they fed people, they took care of the sick, they healed people, and that is by doing that they were spreading Christianity. Well, it wasn't Christianity yet, but by doing that they were spreading the word of God. They were showing God in action.
Yeah， 就是那其实耶稣跟他的门徒是意识到这一点的。那么耶稣和他的门徒所到之处，他们是就是那个医治疗愈那些生病的人，给他们食物吃。那个他们的传播神的教导是通过行动，通过做。
I'm not saying that everyone should go out and spend their life feeding the poor, but as you were saying, the idea of service is so integral to this religion that we're studying.
What's your last sentence? 就是我不是说你就是也要出去啊，终生啊，你都要去就给喂养那些的穷苦的人。但是至少就是说你，最后一句我没有听他在讲什么，就是 What's your last sentence about? I know that you said we don't need to spend our whole life feeding the poor. What's the next one?
The next one is that serve, the Urantians right now are making the same mistake that the Buddhists made, and that you said the Christians didn't make. The early Christians did not make that mistake, which is why Christianity spread so far and wide. But service is integral, innate, inseparable from this religion that the Urantia book is teaching us.
就是那个，因为我提到那个是佛教呢，它就是相当于僧团啊什么的，相当于跟大众啊、跟社会是分离开的。那么这是他们一个比较失败的一个地方嘛。他就提到就是相当于基督教呢，当然它的这个，那个什么有一部分它是相当于我也还是没听清他讲什么，大概他就是说。有一部分它也是传承了相当于基督的那种的大爱的一种的实践吧，应该是。所以那个相当于比那个佛教，我觉得应该稍微形式方面那个更灵活、更接地气儿一些。OK。
It's like you can spread the word of God by talking about God, or you can spread the word of God by acting like God.
你就是说你传教的方式有两种，你是跟人家讲关于神呢，还是你做神要你做的事情，或者是用你说教的方式呢，还是用你行动的方式来传教？这是两种的传教的方式。
The apostles didn't follow Jesus because of all the wonderful things he said. They followed him because each one of them fell in love with his personality.
对，那些使徒呢，跟随他呢，实际上他们都是由于热爱他的人格来跟随他的。
You're not willing to give your life for someone, to follow them through storms and deserts and horrible trying situations because they have wonderful words. You're willing to follow them because you love them, because you trust them, because you admire them.
他说那些使徒宁愿跟他经过各种的艰难困苦，就待在他身边，并不是因为他们喜欢他的教导，而是他们信任和仰慕这个人格。
So the key to spreading the word of the Urantia book is to let these truths make us better people, and by being better people will be drawn to us, and then they'll want to know, well, what is it that you think? What do you believe? Where do you get your strength? Where do you get your faith? And then you can tell them. But until then, it's better to just try to help people. And I'm talking to myself, of course, too.
Yeah. 他说你传播远下之书的关键的点，你就是要其实人家看到你是由于学习这本书，你成为更好的人，然后人家会去好奇你从哪里得到的力量和信仰如果在之前呢，你最好你就是赶紧就是说就闭嘴，你就只争取做好你自己。就是不要，如果你没有行出来之前，就不要去教导，就这个意思。
And then the last thing before we read is, many people came to Jesus to be healed. They didn't come to learn about God. Many came to learn about God, but many others came to be healed. And when he healed them, then they very often, not always, but very often believed in God from then on.
那很多人来就是就近耶稣呢，是想得到疗愈，那么而不是说想要了解关于神的事。那往往他们得到疗愈之后，他们对神的那个信念也从此升起。
Okay, Section 9, the spread of Buddhism.
OK， 这个94篇的第9部分，佛教的传播。
Buddhism prospered because it offered salvation through belief in the Buddha, the enlightened one. It was more representative of the Melchizedek truths than any other religious system to be found throughout Eastern Asia. But Buddhism did not become widespread as a religion until it was espoused in self-protection by the low-caste monarch Asoka, who went to Ignatan in Egypt and was one of the most remarkable civil rulers between Melchizedek and Michael. Asoka built a great Indian empire through the propaganda of his Buddhist missionaries. During a period of 25 years, he trained and sent forth more than 17,000 missionaries to the farthest frontiers of all the known world. In one generation, he made Buddhism the dominant religion of one half the world. It soon became established in Tibet, Kashmir, Ceylon, Burma, Java, Siam, which is now Thailand, Korea, China, and Japan. And generally speaking, it was a religion vastly superior to those which it supplanted or upstepped.
佛教之所以兴盛，是因为它通过信仰佛陀觉悟者来提供救赎。在整个东亚地区，它比任何其他宗教体系都更能代表摩基瑟德的真理。但是，直到地种姓君王阿育王为了自我保护而信奉了佛教之后，佛教才作为一种宗教被广为流传。阿育王仅次于埃及的伊赫纳顿，是摩基瑟德和迈克尔之间最杰出的民众统治者之一，就是这2个时代之间阿育王通过佛教传教士的宣传，建立了一个伟大的印度帝国。在长达25年的时间里，他培训并派遣了17000多名传教士前往已知世界最遥远的边疆。在1代人的时间里，他使佛教成为半个世界的主流宗教。佛教很快在西藏、克什米尔、西兰、缅甸、爪哇、绥罗、朝鲜、中国和日本建立起来。总的来说，佛教比那些被它取代或超越的宗教优越得多。
Ricky, you can read the next paragraph, okay?
OK， 哪个伙伴愿意读的？没有读的，没有读，我继续佛教从印度的故乡传播到整个亚洲，是真诚的宗教信仰者精神奉献和坚持传教的动人心魄的故事之一。乔达摩的传教士们不仅冒着陆路商队的危险，而且还面临着中国海上的危险。他们在亚洲大陆上履行使命，向所有民族传播他们的信仰。但这一佛教已不再是乔达摩的简单教义，而是使它成为神的奇迹化福音。佛教从印度高原的故乡传播的越远，就越不像乔达摩的教义，也就越像他所取代的宗教。后来佛教在中国受到道教的影响，在日本受到神道教的影响，在西藏受到基督教的影响。1000年后，佛教在印度凋零消亡，它被婆罗门化了，后来卑微地屈服于伊斯兰教。而在东方其他大部分地区，它退化成了释迦牟尼绝不会承认的仪式。在南方、西兰、缅甸和印度支那半岛一直存在着对释迦牟尼教义的原教旨主义成见，这就是佛教的小圣派，他们坚持早期自立教义。 但甚至在印度崩溃之前，乔达摩的中国和北印度追随者群体就已开始发展大乘教的大道救赎，与南方的小乘或小道清净论者形成鲜明对比。这些大乘佛教信徒摆脱了佛教教义中固有的社会限制，因此佛教的北方分支在中国和日本不断发展，就是北传嘛，南传就是小乘，北传呢就属于大乘。今
Okay.
天 I will finish reading the whole section. OK， 今
Okay.
天佛教是一个生机勃勃、不断发展的宗教，因为它成功的维护了信徒的许多最高道德价值观。它促进平静和自我控制，增进宁静和幸福，并在很大程度上防止悲伤和哀悼。信仰这种哲学的人比许多不信仰的人生活得更好。最后是一个总结，关于这个佛教的贡献。Okay, I completed section 9, reading of Chinese translation. Let's start over.
Okay, I'll start from paragraph 2.
Yeah.
The spread of Buddhism from its homeland in India to all of Asia is one of the thrilling stories of the spiritual devotion and missionary persistence of sincere religionists. The teachers of Gautama's gospel not only braved the perils of the overland caravan routes, but faced the dangers of the China Seas as they pursued their mission over the Asiatic continent, bringing to all peoples the message of their faith. But this Buddhism was no longer the simple doctrine of Gautama. It was the miraculized gospel which made him a god. See, they did the same thing as the Christians did. And the farther Buddhism spread from its highland home in India, the more unlike the teachings of Gautama it became, and more like the religions it supplanted it grew to be. Buddhism later on was much affected by Taoism in China, Shinto in Japan, and Christianity in Tibet. After 1,000 years in India, Buddhism simply withered and expired. It became Brahmanized and later abjectly surrendered to Islam, while throughout much of the rest of the Orient, it degenerated into a ritual which Gautama Siddhartha would never have recognized. I'll keep reading. In the South, the fundamentalist stereotype of the teachings of Siddhartha persisted in Ceylon, Burma, and the Indochina Peninsula. This is the Hinayana division of Buddhism, which clings to the early or asocial doctrine. But even before the collapse in India, the Chinese and North Indian groups of Gautama's followers had begun the development of the Mahayana teaching of the Great Road, quote unquote, to salvation, in contrast with the purists of the South who held to the Hinayana or Lesser Road. And these Mahayanists cast loose from the social limitations inherent in the Buddhist doctrine. And even since has this northern division of Buddhism continued to evolve in China and Japan. Buddhism is a living, growing religion today because it succeeds in conserving many of the highest moral values of its adherents. It promotes calmness and self-control, augments serenity and happiness, and does much to prevent sorrow and mourning. Those who believe this philosophy live better lives than many who do not. So we see a lot of similarities between how Buddhism spread and how early Christianity spread.
我们看到很多佛教的传播跟这个早期基督教的传播的相似的方面。
We see the contamination, the total contamination of the original teachings.
那我们看到这个佛教它在传播的过程当中被彻底的给污染了、掺杂了。
We see how at some point many of the adherents or followers decided to emphasize that Buddha was a god or was God rather than to emphasize his teachings.
我们看到这个佛陀本人，就悉达多本人，他是被神化了的那么一个偶像，而是大家尊重他胜过他的教导。
This is similar again to Christianity. They made it a teaching about they made Christianity a religion about Jesus instead of about his teachings.
那么这个像基督教一样，他们就是把重点转移到这个以强调耶稣本人，而不是他的教导。
And they're saying that this happened with Buddha also.
那这一篇章让我们看到，实际上那个佛教也遵循了同样的一个歪曲的扭曲的路线。
And then we see the third similarity where it breaks off into factions and one group takes one direction and the other group takes a different direction. So that's like Orthodox Christianity and Western Christianity.
那么不同的也是一样，这第三个相似之处，他们也是分出了不同的派系，就像那个基督教，它也分出了就是最基本的早期的来东正教和西方的基督教。
So this book seems to tell us that the best religions are religions that are adaptive and evolving religions.
Which one is the best?
Well, what I'm saying is when they talk about the good qualities of Christianity or Buddhism, they're talking about a religion that doesn't get stuck with traditions and refuse to change, that it grows and evolves as the people on a planet grow and evolve.
Yeah. 那最好的宗教应该是不是那个僵化的，而是这个成长的和演变的，有适应能力的，这才是好的宗教。
In the last paragraph, it says, Buddhism is a living, growing religion today because it succeeds in conserving many of the highest moral values of its adherents. So the emphasis is on living, growing religion, right? So that's telling us that all religions have to be living, growing religions. They can't be, you can't teach the exact same to one group and then the exact same method to people 1,000 years later. You have to let the religion evolve.
对，所以这个实际上这个最后一段呢，说到佛教是一个活的、生机勃勃的那个不断发展的宗教，就是也告诉我们宗教是必须要是活的、生机勃勃和不断发展的。那么你就是对今天的人说话，跟1000年以前的人说话应该是不同的。
So it says that Buddhism survives today because it has conserved the highest moral values of its adherents. And I would say that would apply to every religion, right? That would be one of the main purposes of every religion, to conserve, preserve, promote the highest moral values of people who believe.
对，那么这个第二句话说，因为他成功的维护了信徒的许多最高道德价值观呢，也表示说那个好的宗教呢是应该是维护和促进那个最高的道德价值观的。
Now it says, it also is talking about the strengths of Buddhism in the last paragraph, and it says it promotes calmness and self-control, augments serenity and happiness, and does much to prevent sorrow and mourning.
对，他也指出这个优点啊，佛教的优点就是成功的维护了信徒这个促进平静啊、自我控制啊、增进宁静和幸福啊，在很大程度上防止悲伤和哀悼。
And I think this is one of the great strengths of Buddhism.
是这个佛教的一个强项。
I think one of the mistakes of Christianity is they emphasize, all right, the Urantia book says that Jesus was a happy, joyful man. He was pleasant. He was in a good mood. He went about doing good. He was, people liked to be in his presence. He was uplifting. But Christianity is always talking about him dying on the cross, being crucified for our sins, is always telling us we're sinners, we're sinners, we're sinners. Repent, repent, repent. So I think that Buddhism, this emphasis on, being serenity, and this emphasis on serenity and happiness is a really, really good thing that Christianity could use more of.
对，那么他就说那个约翰夏之书上就说这个耶稣他总是那个情绪很好啊，给人带来一种平和和幸福。但是呢，那个基督教呢去强调就是基督为人死在十字架上，然后老是强调人都是那个罪人要让你这个忏悔。实际上就是相比较来说，那佛教呢增进人的幸福和宁静，那个这方面它就是比基督教要做得好。
Remember when in one of our first sessions when I read the Beatitudes?
对，他提到这个登山宝训那个对那篇章。Okay.
That was one of the most beautiful teachings of Jesus, and it's telling us all the reasons that we should be happy.
对，就是那个登山宝训，那个耶稣教导我们有这么很多的各种的理由，都要感到幸福，感到快乐。
Happy are the poor in spirit, happy are they who hunger, happy are the meek, happy are they who mourn.
I can't remember.
I know that was too difficult. I'm reading it. The Beatitudes are emphasizing happiness, and then Christianity went and emphasized, they portrayed Jesus as this sad, persecuted guy, whereas the Buddhists portray Buddha as a very happy person. So I'm saying that's a much better approach. Jesus did not want us to be sad.
对呀，就是说那个基督教宣扬，哎呀，这个人的罪呀， 愧疚啊，就在罪疚当中的受折磨呀。然后这个耶稣是一个被迫害的人啊，但是呢，实际上耶稣教导我们是要高兴、幸福、快乐，这个是很不同的教法呀。
So we now call it the Beatitudes, but it was the ordination sermon. It was the sermon where he ordained his apostles, right? So he officially ordained them as his apostles. And that's when he said what we now call the Beatitudes.
那个八福相当于 beatitude， 大概就是那个登山宝训，可能又叫什么什么八福。他强调的就是祝福嘛，他是给出来是他案例他那些的门徒的时候给的这个八福的这个祝福这个宝训啊。
The Urantia book version is a little different than the version in the Bible. It's a little, and I would say a little better.
那么这个八福呢，这个宝训呢，在圣经当中和在右软下之中都出现，但是它的词语用的是不同的。
But the reason that the Beatitude are so famous is because even the Bible version it's what he said was so beautiful.
那么就光就是说，圣经的版本的这个说法也已经是很美了。
So just to give you, I'll just read the first three, and then we'll go back to the religion in Tibet.
那么实际上月亮下之书它更美的，它只读这前3句呢，再回来。
Just to remind you, okay, just to remind you of the Beatitudes.
那就是为了提醒我这个八福他怎么说的。
Happy are the poor in spirit, the humble, for theirs is the treasures of the kingdom of heaven.
说是邻里贫穷的人有福了，他们必承受天国的宝藏。
Happy are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled.
那么那个饥渴慕义的人有福了，他们必会得到饱足。
Happy are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
那么邻里虚心的人有福了，他们将承受地土。
Happy are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
那么就是心灵那个纯净的人有福了，他们必见神。
Happy are the, I can't stop. Happy are they who mourn. They're so beautiful, I can't stop.
Yes, that's okay.
Happy are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted.
那就是哀伤的人有福了，他们必受到怜恤。
Happy are they who weep, for they shall receive the spirit of rejoicing.
他们就是那个软弱的人有福了，他们必在灵里边欢欣鼓舞。
Happy are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy.
那怜恤人的人有福了，他们必受怜恤。
Happy are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God.
那么维护和平的人有福了，他们必会成为神的儿子。
Happy are they who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
就是在为了正义受逼迫的人有福了，他们必承受神的果。
And this is the last one. Happy are you when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven.
对，就是那如果是你由于义被义，那人家诽谤你，用那个什么恶毒的话攻击你，你就高兴吧，因为你这个在天上的奖赏是巨大的。
So one of the wonderful things about Buddhism is that it does tell you to be happy, and Jesus told us to be happy. But a lot of Christians sort of don't really believe in happiness. A lot of Christians walk around and they try to be really serious and religious, and they're not very happy.
对，你看，像佛教啊和这个基督都教导我们要幸福、要快乐，但是基督教本身，那么很多的教徒，他们其实并不真正相信有幸福这回事。
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think we have time to do this, section 10 that related
Okay.
to Tibet. It's already 10, over 10.
Okay. 10:20.
Yeah.
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 Well, we got one section done.
Yeah, that's good accomplishment already.
Yeah.
Good. Now, do we solicit any questions from the audience?
Sure. Our
有
little
什么
group.
问题？我们今天读的内容啊，大家还有7个伙伴还在，我们就是可以问一问他今天读的内容或者以前读的内容都可以，任何问题都可以现在提一下。跟海蒂有什么互动，都欢迎。今天读的内容有些什么让你觉得困惑的，想让他再澄清一下的吗？
Okay. So next week we have adjuster and the human personality.
对，下一个星期是关于那个思想调整者跟人类的人格的关系。
And then after that is material handicaps to adjuster indwelling.
对，就是思想调整者内住的这个物质障碍。
I'm just looking ahead.
Yeah. Can we end the recording now?
Okay.